It was actually brought to my attention after I changed that we give tzedakah at the end, that really one is supposed to give tzedakah before prayers. In fact, it says, the Gemara says that first we give tzedakah v'hoda matzli, and then we pray. So you know what, friends? I'll give tzedakah now, join me now or join me later. But let's just keep on giving tzedakah, and let's just keep on praying for the geula before and after, and we will have the geula. Friends, today, as we mentioned yesterday, is Chafov, excuse me, the 20th day of the month of the Yortzeit of the Rebbe's father, Reb Levi Yitzchak, Reb Levik. I shared short biography yesterday, and I want to share with you one of the most fascinating stories of Reb Levi Yitzchak's life in terms of his commitment and his devotion, his fearless and selfless devotion for Yiddishkeit and for care for everybody. The Rebbetzin, Chane, that is the Rebbe's wife, the Reb Levik's wife, wrote in the memoirs, and she writes that in 1939, there was the time of famine, of hunger. People were getting cards for rationing food. But the government was out to show that they pro-Jews and they allow freedom of religion, etc. That the government, the Bolsheviks, the communist regime. Ukraine being the bastion of the food of Eastern Europe, they would bake matzahs. But that particular year, 1939, the matzahs that were baked looked like matzahs, but they were far from being kosher. Reb Levik got very much involved, and he set up on his own to bake proper kosher matzahs for everyone. The Rebbetzin write that he wrote a letter to the Ispolkom, the executive committee, detailing 10 requirements to be implemented at the baking and the selling of the matzah, along with the demand that everything he or the rabbis he had appointed would instruct must be followed. And they replied that all his requirements would be met, and that regular flour from the market would not be used. And indeed, that's what happened, to the point that once a supervisor reported to Mashgiach that the dough made of 4 pud of flour, which was a big amount, had been left on the table for 5 extra minutes, questioning the kosher of the matzah. So Reb Levik immediately instructed that it be sent to Chametz bakeries, and then they supplied new flour for those matzahs. Now, all this took place, let us not forget, writes the Rebbetzin, during the time when a private individual who wished to follow a religious lifestyle to keep Shabbos as much as possible was forced to hide in total secrecy so that no neighbor or anyone else would notice. Later on, in the course of his interrogations, that we usually held around 3-4 in the morning, he was asked, how were you able to carry out such a major matzah baking operation, and for religious purposes, during a year when there was a shortage of flour and food in general? Reb Levik, in his brilliance, replied, when I visited Kalinin, who was the chairman of the All-Union Central Executive Committee, one of the most powerful individuals at that time in the communist regime, I bribed him, so he gave me a permit. The interrogator was speechless. He couldn't say anything to that. The second thing they asked during one of those interrogations concerned his public address about the census question on faith, where the Reb Levik stated clearly that no one should deny the fact that they're Jewish and they're religious, and he impressed upon everyone of his community to do so. And this was relayed to the communists, word for word. Obviously, they planted an agent to watch my husband's behavior and to observe his influence over the people. Unfortunately, later on we learned that it was one of the congregants who was the informer. So when they asked him, how did you encourage everyone to write the religious people when you know that religion is banned? So the Reb Leivik answered, the Soviet regime achieves all his objectives only through truth. So for a Jew to to openly misrepresent his true belief out of fear for losing his livelihood would be untruthful. So I insisted that everybody should be honest on the census taking. The Rebbetzin writes how wisely and cleverly he deflected their questioning. And this put an end to those line of inquiries. But unfortunately found him guilty. He was sent away to exile and he passed away on today, Chav Av in 1944. Rabbeinu Shalom, in the merit of his Mesiras Nefesh, may we all merit today to be reunited with the Rebbe and with him in the Beis Hamikdash.